talk about P3s, people often think of roads, and quite frankly, that's what I think of most often, roads and bridges. But there are many other applications for different types of projects and different types of partnerships. And I would just ask you to explain how these partnerships differ and how can states go about leveraging more private sector investment. And you have three governors on the panel, all from rural states. And so when I listen to Governor Northam talk about Virginia and Interstate 66, that's not an opportunity we have here in Louisiana because we don't have the vehicle miles traveled, the population density. But if you could, how can rural states do a better job of accessing private capital through these partnerships?
That's a great question. I really appreciate the opportunity, Governor Edwards, Governor Gordon, Governor Bullock, to share thoughts with you today on infrastructure investment. These are vitally important issues, and the rural question is key among them. Just by way of background, we come at this with about 20 years of experience in investing in infrastructure directly on behalf of retirement savers globally. And there was a question or a comment earlier by Governor Northam about how to create long-term stable partnerships with the private sector. We'd like to think that investing in the retirement savers of workers globally is a great way to help underpin that long-term stability of those partnerships with the private sector. To answer your question directly, there are multiple types of projects that are of great interest to the private sector, whether it's greenfield development or brownfield operational infrastructure. There's multiple infrastructure subsectors of interest. You pointed out roads. There's also ports and airports and water systems and broadband. And each of those has very specific considerations that need to be taken into account. But to get the best bang for the buck in leveraging the private sector investment, there are a few fundamental principles that are always going to apply, and I just want to go through those. As you think about this, very clearly, you're going to want to focus on your objectives and be very clear about those, giving careful consideration to the specific investments that are going to improve the lives of your constituents, whether it's shortening their commutes or cleaning up their drinking water or improving their access to broadband, their access to education through broadband. When you think of public-private partnerships, think first and foremost about partnerships. The private sector is here to help you, and we can help you in very important ways like shedding risk or introducing innovation and efficiencies. By partnering with investors, you can position yourselves better to achieve your objectives than would otherwise be the case. There are experts out there that can help you to negotiate the right deals that are tailored to meet your very specific needs. And finally, you're going to want to craft your message very, very carefully. What's worked elsewhere around the world, including Australia, where we have extensive experience, is when the governors can be very persuasive in communicating the benefits that they're going to deliver in terms of better service, safety and reliability, and making clear that you're going to protect the public interest through properly structured agreements with the private sector. In my experience, it's that winning of the public trust that's really essential to delivering a successful outcome. And I would say lastly, as you think about the steps that you can take today to improve your access to public-private partnerships, look to programs that have proven successful in other jurisdictions. I mentioned in one of the earlier discussions we had today about the challenges that we face in America, the huge shortfalls in state and local budgets, high unemployment, the crumbling infrastructure, the ultra low returns that pension savers are able to achieve in the current low interest rate environment. So we would propose that the governors and their municipal counterparts help address all four of those issues with a single solution. Here's how. Lease a few of your existing public assets and use those proceeds to invest in other infrastructure. Doing this can help you to generate new revenues, to create jobs, to boost investment, to drive economic growth, and to improve the retirement outcomes for millions of workers. And I would say, to make it easier for you all to achieve that, consider backing federal legislation that has been written and is currently pending in the Senate. Consider that federal legislation for a pilot program of incentive grants that state and local governments can qualify for by leasing existing infrastructure assets like airports and water systems and using the proceeds to invest in other infrastructure. These federal incentive grants are a proven method for catalyzing growth and attracting investment, and they also provide crucial political courage to state and local governments to explore alternatives to traditional public procurement and municipal borrowing. We know programs like this are effective because we've seen them succeed elsewhere. In Australia, for every dollar of federal grant offered, over $6.50 of economic infrastructure investment was generated. Also, the program caused investment to accelerate. Taxpayers got better service quality, and this was all in all a low-cost, high-impact program that we think we can successfully replicate here in the U.S. with your help. We have a number of successful examples of infrastructure leases in the U.S. When we acquired the Indiana Toll Road several years ago, we invested more into that road than at any time since its original construction in the 1950s, improving the road service and the signage and completely overhauling the rest stops. And as a result, the safety metrics have improved, as has the user experience. In the meantime, the state of Indiana, importantly, was able to cover more than 10 years of highway investment with the proceeds from the lease concession. And that was very clearly the objective of the governor at the time of that lease. Later, governor was able to generate even more proceeds for investment in transportation and rural broadband by modifying the concession terms. So we want to help you to generate more success stories like this, but to do so, your Washington delegations need to hear from you that you want and need a federal program of infrastructure investment incentive grants, a program that will cost very little at the federal level, but can have a really outsized impact in helping you to raise new revenues and create jobs at a time when both are currently urgently needed. Happy to share additional information at your convenience.